Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name Alessandro De Vigos. Here on YouTube, it's important that if you like our content that you hit the subscribe button. I have to learn that after switching over from Vimeo to YouTube. So if you enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button. Let's continue with our dental photography masterclass. After talking about standards, let's move and talk about equipment. And I know many of you out there are still using their beloved DSLR cameras introduced 26 years ago, Nikon D1, the first professional DSLR camera. Now it's time to switch to mirrorless. Although DSLR cameras still work, they are also not the most important part of the equipment, by the way. The lens and the flash are more important. All major brands have discontinued development and production of DSLR cameras. So Sony was the first leader in mirrorless cameras, followed by Nikon and Canon. Also, they don't produce any DSLR cameras anymore. So if you have still questions related to DSLR cameras, I have some in my drawer to give you a hand if needed. Let's talk about the difference. So here to explain what is the difference between a DSLR with the pentaprism that allows the light to be reflected by a mirror that lifts up then to get the light to the sensor, a pentaprism to get this optical viewfinder. The same happens all electronically on the mirrorless camera. They are more compact, smaller size, have also much more options. The attachment to the lens is also bigger, allowing future development of better lenses for different needs. So if we talk about mirrorless cameras, what cameras would I recommend? Today, for me, the top picks by brands are listed here. The Nikon, it's not Nikon, it's Nikon Z52 as a starter, APS-C sensor, the C6 III, a full frame, a really cool camera with a lot of video features. Canon R10, a very compact camera I really enjoy using. The R8, that's the most compact full frame camera. And in the Sony universe, the A6700, an APS-C camera, already a classic. Or my favorite camera these days, the Alpha 7 C2 as a full frame camera. So these are the options. I also have prepared some checklists to get your camera, lens, and flash. So if you need more information, drop me a comment or send me a direct message and I can share these checklists with you. Why should you switch to mirrorless? And the number one thing is the so-called focus peaking. We are shooting fully manually. We'll talk about the settings later. And focus peaking allows you to highlight in a given color. So for teeth, I would go for red. You can choose white if you have bloody pictures, to highlight where your focus is. So basically, manual focus, you move and at the edge it's getting red. You also have like the orientation. If you are correctly positioned in front of your patient, you look where it's red, you push the button, voila, the image is done. So this is a really cool thing. Let's talk about the sensor inside the camera just for a moment. You have heard about the crop factor. Imagine the full frame, you see it here with the black. The black frame is a so-called 35 millimeter lens. Historically, this is from the first cameras done by Oscar Barnack at Leica. He took a 35 millimeter film it in the first camera, which is the father or the mother or whatever of all later camera developments. Basically, it's 24 by 36. If you take a camera with a smaller sensor, like the green one or the yellow one, the green one, APS-C, that's Nikon, APS-C 1.6 crop is Canon. What do you need to do if you want to shoot the full image when you have a smaller sensor? Yes, you have to step back to get the overall image. And we will see the impact this distance has on especially the depth of field and the cropping of our dental photography. Be aware that if you have a too short lens, that you will have issues in the perspective distortion. Be aware of perspective distortion when using a too short macro lens. So here you see the example, 105 millimeter on a full frame, 60 millimeter on a full frame. With the 60 millimeter, you have to get closer. You see that the light has difficulties to enter the oral cavity, and you get, especially in the lateral parts, a so-called perspective distortion. Just that's why we will talk about what lens you should buy. And here we go. I also have prepared a checklist on this, what lens and why you need a 90 to 105 millimeter macro lens. So we have talked about the 1:1 magnification ratio that is important. You need the space, the distance, to have also space for the light to go in. And again, you don't want the perspective distortion. That's why this 90 to 105 millimeter or a longer lens. If you have a 100 millimeter lens on an APS-C sensor camera, it's like a 150 millimeter lens. So you don't get too close, so you don't have shadows, and you don't write to your patient with the camera just inside the mouth. And this focal length is also perfect for your dental portraits. So one lens, the macro lens, can be used for intraoral photography, but also for portrait photography. And that's something we will talk later about. Avoid these mistakes. Don't use zoom lenses. So a lot of people have asked me, why not use just the kit lens that came with the camera? It shows it has a macro mode. Well, they are not working as good because they don't have the magnification ratio and other issues. So here's my macro checklist. Again, if you want, I have it also as a Notion page ready for you. True 1:1 magnification, focal length around 100 millimeter. You don't need stabilization. Unfortunately, most of the cameras have to make the lens heavier. But if you have stabilization on your lens, turn it off because you really don't need it. We are shooting with small aperture, so we close the aperture, giving high f-stop numbers to get more depth of field. So these are the important points. And if we talk about brands, I have also a video or a checklist talking about third-party lenses. But here, personally, I would go for the original lenses, the Nikon Z105 macro, the Canon RF100 macro, which has even a 1.4 magnification, the Sony 90 millimeter macro, or there's a 70 to 200 with a 2-point converter, which is also an interesting lens we are using in the dental office. The only downside here of the Canon compared to the other lens is that we don't have a visible scale on the lens showing the magnification ratio and the distance. Everything has to be controlled inside the viewfinder. And here the bonus, you get the perfect portrait lens. And check out also my portrait photography guide. And if you don't have hit the subscribe button, maybe you can do it now if you enjoy the content so far. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask anytime. Put it in the comments. I will be happy to answer your questions. So for the portrait thing, we will have an extra tutorial just for you. Third-party macro lenses can be an alternative, but check if they have really 1:1 magnification ratio, that they are around 100 millimeter and they are solid. So Sigma, Tamron, Laowa, they offer good lenses at a lower budget. After selecting the most important part, the macro lens, let's go over and talk about flashes. We will go into details on all these topics during the masterclass. Some things will be also repeated to get them better inside your brain. The question is always ring lateral flash, manual or TTL? Well, let's talk about this. The flash, we need the flash to get the really standardized illumination in a standardized color temperature, also consistency in the exposure, and we want to control the shadows. So basically with the lateral flash, we want to create the three-dimensional look with some shadows and highlights. The ring flash gives a more flat surface, but the ring flash is easy to use, has a uniform lighting, and well, a little flatter surface texture. But for most documentation cases, especially if you are an orthodontist, if you are an oral surgeon, well, documentation, and also for the other dentist, documentation is the number one thing you need to do with your camera equipment. And the ring flash is especially the new generation of the Godox MFR76, which has a larger ring, gets a better diffusion, gets a better diffused light for your everyday photography. Lateral flashes offer more control. You have more shadows, creating a 3D look, but you need more setup using them. Should we shoot manually or TTL? For a long time, I was saying only manual is the way to go because TTL is inconsistent, and it was. But now with the latest generation of cameras, and especially the new Godox generation of ring and lateral flashes, we have developed the so-called dental mode for your TTL photography that is really consistent. And honestly, I'm shooting only in TTL 99% of my images because it works. It's easy, and not only for beginners. There might be some dropouts, but it's not an issue. If one of the pictures is overexposed or underexposed, just shoot again, and that's it. So what do you need? We need a flash with decent power. So there are some flashes I also used in the past from Metz and Nissin and other brands that are not powerful enough, have also issues with the color temperature. So we need to control the power manually if possible. So we have like a flash that has the two options to go for manual and also for TTL. For me, Godox MFR76 in the TTL version that works for Sony, Nikon, Canon, and many other brands. The MF12, a compact lateral flash, and the Godox V100, my favorite now for portrait photography. We'll talk about that later. Okay, this is it for this part of the equipment. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Check out my checklists, my buying guides for all this. And we will talk about in the next episode about a hot topic, diffusers and softboxes. So stay tuned for the next episode, and may the light be with you.